अक्षय कुमार भी अपने बेडरूम से वीडियो बना रहा है, कान्ये वेस्ट भी अपने बेडरूम से वीडियो बना रहा है, मैं भी अपने बेडरूम से वीडियो बना रहा हूँ. हाँ, उसका बेडरूम अच्छा है, उसका बेडरूम बुरा है, मेरा बेडरूम ये है, etc. But it's just the quality of your content. Go to Chandni Chowk and sit with the uncles and talk over there. You go to Ludhiana, you sit in a field. You go to the south and have a dosa at a popular cafe. Everybody is just funny. Everybody likes to laugh. They're telling jokes. There's anecdotes. That's India, yeah.
That's the toughest thing about this virus is, right? We don't know who to blame. Like, this is the first thing we've experienced in the last 73 years that is not Pakistan's fault. We are not used to things not being Pakistan's fault. Welcome to lockdown day.
Like, I promise you, is somebody in the toilet? I just heard a flush. Did you guys fucking hear that shit?
So when the world shut down, we decided to do just a couple of shows online to raise money for charity.
Alright, what's up everyone? Hello! Every night I ask this one question.
What's the first thing you're going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do? First thing you're going to do after the lockdown ends? After the lockdown ends.
Hello and welcome to Peeping Moon. Today we have someone who's very funny, very witty, inside out. He is none other than Mr. Veer Das. Hello, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. In my pajamas like this whole year. So it's fun.
Like every one of us.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one question, Veer. What was the first thing you did after the world reopened?
The first thing I did after the world reopened was three things actually. I saw my parents because I've been wanting to see them for a while. I did an outdoor stand-up comedy show because I'd been missing the crowds a lot. And then in my new special Outside In, there was a kid that wanted ice cream, who's kind of the centerpiece of the show. So we sent him many tubs of ice cream. So those are the three things that we did.
Actually, I saw that picture of you sending him an ice cream, I think. So I saw your special come out in August.
Yes.
And it was something really beautiful. It was very beautifully made, and I could see that it was something very personal to you because you were in lockdown. The world was in lockdown, and you were talking to these people from around the world. Mm-hmm. How was it for you to connect with your fans from everywhere and to organize this special?
I don't think of people as fans. So I think for me, it started out as giving me purpose. Yeah, I have to raise money. So it really was that, saying how can I raise money for these 4 different charities. But once that was done, it kind of became a very interesting creative puzzle to solve, which was I became very interested in telling their story. If you think about what a stand-up comedy special is, usually it's a comedian and lots of production and lots of swag, and he looks amazing or she looks amazing, and they tell you about themselves or they tell you about very, very big things, and they are the star of the show. And I said, can I do a special that's the complete opposite of all of those things, where the comedian is alone and he's wearing absolutely nothing fancy, and there's no budget, and there's one camera, and he doesn't talk about big things, he talks about minuscule little things, but he makes his audience the star of the show, his audience front and center. So that's what was interesting to me, is trying to tell their stories. So first trying to get their story out of them, and then trying to put it out to the world.
And with every show, because you did a lot of shows, and every show is very different from the other one, and it's completely unscripted. So does it make your job a little more hard?
A lot harder. I wouldn't want to repeat this, because 37 shows, no script whatsoever, going at it all night. It's a tough thing to do. I'm not going to lie. There's comfort in finesse and polish and trying things, and Veer Das for India was a very successful special because it had done 65 shows, and like a surgeon, you had gone into every word of that show. So this was a very, it's like going etch a sketch for your brain, clearing it out and then trying to work with something new.
But is it also tough when you have to put out a special like this and you are doing it in a lockdown and you have no crew whatsoever at all? You are your cameraman, you are your light man.
Yeah.
You have to organize things yourself.
I don't really understand lighting or any of these things. I understand filmmaking a little bit, so I've directed videos and stuff before, and now I'm directing a series. But uh, you have to understand, one didn't have to put out this special. It wasn't supposed to be a special. When one was filming this, I didn't even know what it was. At the end of these 30 shows, I had 300 minutes of footage. It was just on my laptop, and I sat and edited it for a month and then sent it to my guys to mix and everything. So I didn't even think of it as pressure, because I was just like, this could just be a home video that nobody ever watches. Like the fact that this one camera product is now on Netflix worldwide is insane. It's ridiculous. But yeah.
Yeah, I was getting to it because so what we see in a special, like especially in this one, is like a compilation of all your shows together. You're asking
Yeah.
question to someone and then someone's answering. But in reality, it must have been like a huge content, like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours talking to these people, interacting with them, and then editing it at home. The stories that you have heard when you are home, does it kind of stayed with you that okay, lockdown hai, I am not the only one in this lockdown. Maybe I'm in a privileged position and there are others who are just suffering and there's nothing I
Yeah.
can do.
I think, look, I'm definitely of the opinion that you have to weaponize your privilege, no, for good causes, and that's partly what this was all about. I definitely think that people with large public platforms, which I'm fortunate enough to have one, should be held accountable for charity work each year. At the end of the day, brands come to celebrities, or even public people. Donating is not enough. At the end of the day, I have 12 million followers across social media. Brands come to us and say, you have this reach and we would love you to do this post. And I charge brands those money for those posts. So that means I'm profiting off of you as my following, uh, on an annual basis multiple times. And therefore I have to be held accountable to give back. So that's definitely something I believe. And so I think the pandemic has been an interesting check your privilege moment.
Right. And you have this really interesting relationship with Netflix because
Yeah.
a lot of your stand-ups and specials have been released there. Then you did Hasmukh, which
Yeah.
was so popular, which got such
Yeah.
great reviews. Did at any point of time you expected that, okay, this lockdown series that I've made is going to be picked up by Netflix and they're going to tell me, okay, I'm releasing it here?
So Netflix and I couldn't have asked for a better partner in terms of wanting to get behind the craziness that is in my head. When I edited it, I honestly sent it to my office. My company is 15, 16 people who are ruthless with me. And they, in the 15, 16 people, there are 7 women, there are 7 or 8 men, and they're of different age groups and of very different language speaking and demographics. So there are enough people who will tell me this is terrible. We don't want to watch this. So if I can catch 60% run rate in my office, ye dekhna chahenge, that means it's something. Then I just sent it to Netflix and I'm like, I'm putting this out on my website to raise money. And Netflix thought it was a beautiful piece of art, and they said we'd like it. It takes 4-5 months to put something on Netflix, even after you've delivered it, for series, feature, anything. And I said, then let me raise some money with it first. Let it do the good it's meant to do. So in August, we put it up for 8 days on my website. It did a significant amount of fundraising. And then I took it off knowing that it would wind up on Netflix eventually.
And there's a change of name that happened with
Yes.
your special. From Inside Out, it became Outside In. Any
Yeah.
special reason for
Yeah,
this?
I mean, when you're releasing things on your website, you can call them whatever the hell you like, yeah. But if you're releasing them on Netflix, that title has to be available, no? So Inside Out is a very popular title. I think there's 2 movies and
Yeah.
1 cartoon that are called that. So I just found the closest thing that I could, which was Outside In.
That's very interesting to know. Also, with you and your now special coming on Netflix, this year has been insane, and you have got appreciation for your series Hasmukh.
Yeah.
How has that been for you? Because it was a very dark comedy, dark humor that we saw.
Yeah.
A lot something that people don't really accept it in one go.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
someone will see it, they'll not be a big fan of it in the starting, but they'll slowly get a hold of it. How has that been for you?
It's been a very interesting year. As artists, you go through successful years, and then usually you spend time capitalizing on that success, and then you'll have a year where you'll shoot many things because you were successful last year, and then the following year you'll have many releases. So it was very nice to have 3 or 4 releases this year and sign a bunch of new work and feel very creative, and have all of them be successful, but without any of the pollutants of success. So there's no PR and there's no success party and there's no schmoozing. It's like, acha, Hasmukh is #1 show in India. Aaj raat ko kitchen saaf karna hai, dishes karne hai, aur kal bathroom saaf karna hai. That's literally what the day was. We defeated Money Heist, which is one of the biggest Netflix shows that
Yeah.
exist, to become the #1 show in India. And that night I did the dishes, yeah, and cleaned the kitchen. So
Do you know they have put your show in a category, in a genre that's called cynical on Netflix?
yeah, that would make sense. That's apt.
It's in two genres. It's called cynical and offbeat. Offbeat, I understood. Cynical, I just laughed it
I
out.
think those are very good descriptions for my career in general. It's cynical and offbeat. So yeah.
We're in like, I personally believe your comedy is very real. You pick up topics from what's happening around you. You don't shy away from talking about very sensitive topics.
Yeah.
Be it politics, be it government, personal life, anything that's happening. Does it somewhere affect your personal or a professional life somehow, because you're talking about very sensitive topics and you get that kind of pressure from outside that, don't do this kind of stuff, you'll not get sponsors, you'll
No,
not get brands?
I mean, those are fringe elements. You have to always remember who you're talking to. So if I do a Modi joke, you have to keep in mind the audience knows more Modi jokes than I do. And I feel like oftentimes people are intimidated because we assume that these echo chambers of social media are representative of the larger India, but they're actually not. Very honestly, if you come to my show, there's 5,000 people there. Most of the people are fine between 18 and 29, 30 years old. That's the large chunk of my fan base. That's 65, 70% of my fan base. But there's uncles, there's aunties, there are right wingers, left wingers, there's Hindus, Muslims, single people, divorced people. And most of India wants to pay their bills, have a good meal, have a laugh, and go to bed. Yeah? If you go to Chandni Chowk and sit with the uncles and talk over there, you go to Ludhiana, you sit in a field, you go to the south and have a dosa at a popular cafe. Everybody is just funny. Everybody likes to laugh. They're telling jokes. There's anecdotes. That's India, yeah. So those people aren't terribly sensitive. The people who are offended by comedy are people who have something to prove. But that's not your country.
That's true. That's true. And with OTT platforms emerging so much this year, because now they have a very different stand from what they had a year back.
Yeah.
Now people are taking it more seriously, and it has given a lot of space for budding talent, budding comedians to put up their content, not just their own social media profiles. Now platforms like Netflix are taking up comedians and social media influencers to make those gigs and more content. You think that this is the kind of right time to give that a push to this new talent that is out there, who's
But I
thinking
always
right
assume
now?
that they know the market better, the macro picture, when it's right to invest in what. So I mean, I'm sure they're doing it with a much better perspective than me. What I liked about this year is this very democratic year. I was telling somebody that कि अक्षय कुमार भी अपने बेडरूम से वीडियो बना रहा है, कान्ये वेस्ट भी अपने बेडरूम से वीडियो बना रहा है, मैं भी अपने बेडरूम से वीडियो बना रहा हूँ. हाँ, उसका बेडरूम अच्छा है, उसका बेडरूम बुरा है, मेरा बेडरूम ये है, etc. But it's just the quality of your content. Production values went out of the window. Star power went out of the window. All the advantages went out of the window. So for smaller artists like myself to level up, or for smaller comedians to level up, it's a very democratic time.
That's true. I read sometime back in one of your posts on Instagram, I guess, that you own just like 3-4 pairs of t-shirts now, or like 1 or 2 pair of jeans, because you want to save money more and you want to travel more.
Yeah.
And I remember this specifically because after reading it, I kind of changed my lifestyle a lot.
Oh, very nice.
And though I haven't been able to travel because everything happened.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it kind of really, really impacted me, and I took that in my lifestyle. I was like, okay, I can put out my money in maybe something else that I really want to do. Absolutely. I read it, and do you think that that's one way of interacting with your fans and followers on social media, to putting out these small things which it's yours, but it might impact others? And I'm asking you because it did impact me.
It started out as a simple experiment saying, the last time I did a world tour, it was 26, 27 countries, and I just didn't want to use check-in luggage. It takes too long. And then customs and passports and all of that stuff. So I said, can I travel the whole world with this one carry-on luggage, carry-on trolley? And that means I got to have 4 or 5 t-shirts and, 4 pairs of underwear, socks, 2 pairs of jeans, one sweater, one jacket, and we managed. But then suddenly, you know, you have time to see the city. You're not shopping. You have time to go to the best. You have money to go to the best restaurant. You can stay in a slightly better hotel room because you didn't spend all of your money on shopping something else. But also the perspective as a comedian changes because you're not writing of, "Arey, main Gucci store mein gaya tha aur maine ye dekha." You're writing about my town square mein khada tha, maine ye dekha. It's more relatable things. I have a lot of clothes. 10 years as a celebrity, I've been given a lot of clothes. So at some point, I looked at my cupboards and I'm like, yeah, this is enough. Yeah. And then in June, my wife and I came down to Goa. And that's when I just brought one carry-on to Goa. So till now, I'm surviving on that. And if I have to shoot something or endorse something, they send me the clothes. I wear them and I send them back or I give them away. It's just easier. Yeah, it's chilled.
Yeah, I realized it after I adapted that lifestyle, and I was like, okay, I have a lot of clothes to wear. I don't need to buy new ones.
Yeah.
Veer, what kind of content you consume during the lockdown? Because I know you read a lot and I know you watch a lot of good and sensible content. So what was it that you actually consumed?
I read a lot. I watched a lot of documentaries. I didn't watch too many series, to be very honest with you. So the Michael Jordan documentary I watched. I saw a show called Succession on HBO, which is very nice. I loved Scam. Scam is my favorite thing that I've watched over the last year. I thought Samir and Applause and all did a wonderful job with that. And then some World War II stuff. But I've been reading and writing quite a bit. I'm going to be doing a rom-com next year. I'm going to be doing a series next year, and I'm producing 2 series, and I'm writing all of them. So I'm writing my next movie and my next series I'm writing.
I was coming on to that point because it's been so many years that you have been in this industry and you have done almost everything.
Yeah.
You have done movies, you've done stand-up, your own shows, now you're producing, writing, everything. You have come such a long way. You have grown. Do you see yourself that you have grown as an actor, as a performer, or do you still feel that you have a long way to go and you're still learning?
It's a mix of both. Yeah, I feel like there's enough knowledge to come with the craft. So I do feel like I have a perspective now. And I have a voice now, creative voice, and also have a type of humor that I enjoy. So the rom-com that I'm writing reflects my type of humor, and that's also the reason that the studio wants that kind of this thing. But the series I'm writing, which I'll star in, has nothing to do with who I am. It's completely different. So I'm in a writer's room with 5 writers who I have nothing in common with. But I'm the star of the show, so they're very nice and they say, ha, acha hai, and then they go off and write their own thing. So it's a mix of really leaning into who you are and what you achieved and what you understand, but also constantly risking and constantly throwing yourself into the unknown. I think that balance has to be achieved.
But does it make your job a little more tough when you are co-writing something with someone else? Because when you're stand-ups, you are like, okay, this is my experience and this is what I'm going to say on stage. When you're co-writing a series or a movie with someone, does it make it a little more difficult for your vision to come out there?
For me, it's always been DIY. That's my entire career. The only times I've ever succeeded, I used to have a formula, which is, I'll do 1 for me and I'll do 3 for them. But then I realized the one thing that I did for me was succeeding more than the 3 for them. So now I do 1 with them and like 3 for me that I really want to do. So I'm doing a nice commercial Bollywood movie next year where I have nothing to do with the writing and I just have to build biceps and act well. And I'll do that, and that's fun to enjoy. But chances are the thing that will be more remembered are the things that I really suffer and write for.
It's very well put. Veer, this was a very, very interesting conversation. I have been looking forward to talk to you since a very long time, and today I think I got a chance. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, and good luck with the minimalism. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that at least one person is impacted by that. So I'm happy to hear that.
Of course, I am. All the best for your special. And for everyone who's watching this video, would you like to tell them anything about your special?
It's been a long year. It's been a terrible year, and my special kind of puts it into perspective. So it's called Outside In on Netflix. If you had a good year, if you had a shit year, both of them are good enough reasons to watch my special. So please watch it.
Thank you, Veer. Have a good day.
Cheers. Take
Bye.
care.